This is Majority Caucus. We come your way every Thursday, 6 o'clock p.m. to 7 p.m. The NPP, prior to the 2016 general elections, made no secret its intention of putting education at the heart of its government's vision for growth, development, and transformation of Ghana. Barely a couple of months after Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Bawumia-led administration was sworn into office, the free SHS, which spearheaded the NPP's policy on education, was implemented. A bold and audacious decision. Today, the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo Bawumia-led administration's legacy on education is as evident as the noon sunshine for all to see. May I take pain to reiterate that within the past 4 years, the NPP has, 1, awarded youth scholarship for over 30,000 brilliant but needy students via the district level scholarship scheme in 2019 alone, and is projected to be over 60,000 students by the end of this year. Through the free SHS policy, 1.2 million Ghanaian children, the largest in the history of the country, have been able to benefit from the free SHS. 3, we have also restored teacher training allowances to over 48,000 teacher trainees, which cost about $357 million in the 2020 fiscal year alone. We have also restored the nursing training allowances to over 49,000 Ghana cedis nursing trainees, which also cost about 49,000, as I earlier said. As at the end of the 2019, people to teacher ratio has improved to about 1:37 at the kindergarten level and 1:33 at the primary level, which is about 88% increment. Since 2017, a total of 6,176 staffs have been employed at the tertiary level. Also, a staggering 93,724 teaching and non-teaching staff will be employed in total by the end of this year. Increased capitation grant by 120% from 4 cedi per child to 10 cedis. Tonight, we will bring you a complete synopsis of the stellar performance of Akufo-Addo Bawumia-led administration on education. We bring you the facts about the job created in the education sector and its impact on the livelihood of the Ghanaian child. I am Eko Vincent Asefo, the parliamentary candidate for the people of Old Tafo constituency, and I am your host for this Majority Caucus. We are also live on all NPP social media platforms. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. You are most welcome to Majority Caucus. We come your way every Thursday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Today we have in the studios Dr. Yaw Osei-Aduchum, who is the Deputy Minister of Education. Actually, he's my boss. Ever since that I worked with the Ministry of Education, I have been working with him. We have a very good relationship as far as our working relationship is also concerned. Doc, you are most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Today we are going to deal with our performance in the education sector.
Yes.
The leader of the Ministry of Education, Dr. Matthew Pempe, since 2017 to date, has led the ministry to a point whereby it's worthy of emulation. In fact, it is one of the trump cards for His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo going into the 2020 elections. Now, we want to find out from you. We know that the education sector have created a number of jobs as far as the implementation of the free SHS and other reforms are concerned. We want the Ghanaian people to understand what kind of jobs have we created in the education sector since 2017 till date.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on this show with you, and to say a very good evening to our viewing audience, wherever you find yourself, whether on TV or social media. I just want to first of all say that the President's vision for transformation of education is very clear, bold, and compassionate, and every attempt has been made to ensure that we have accessible, quality, and relevant education. But you see, when we talk about all this, I believe the icing on the cake is the jobs that we have also created in the process of making sure we have a quality, accessible, and relevant education system. We also have to upgrade and at the same time enhance the manpower that will enable us to get to that destination. So whether it's about food suppliers and all the other direct and indirect jobs that are created, whether it's about teachers who are recruited, directly by Ghana Education Service, non-teaching staff recruited by Ghana Education Service, youth employment, folks who were recruited as cooks and as pantry boys in various schools, those who went through security training so that they can reinforce and bolster the numbers of security guards at various campuses through the youth employment program. Whichever way you look at it, you have created an opportunity for Free Senior High School to be an engine of growth in the short term. And once you do that in the short term and increase the manpower base of the nation in terms of giving the opportunity for more people to participate in the workforce, we're also leveraging that to create the workforce of the future. So it's a win-win. Short-term skills opportunity to increase employment, which then improves the economy, of course. But your medium to long-term goal of job creation then is clearly linked up with the benefits of education as a socio-economic transformation engine. So this evening I'm excited that we'll have opportunity to be able to look at jobs created and jobs that are going to be created and opportunity that is coming through this transformative education system that will really give us the skills for this nation to participate in the fourth industrial revolution, which is around the corner, by the way.
Right, but I think that we will have to get into the details of this so that the Ghanaian people will understand. Now, for the implementation of free senior high school education, you remember that government had to even go for a certain kind of bond, if you like, the Get Fund securitization, about 1.5 billion. And there have been some interventions in the senior high school, especially because of the implementation of the double track and what have you. We want to know what kind of employment has the implementation of the double track, the implementation of the free senior high school education, the Get Fund 1.5 billion securitization, and other interventions that we've made in the education sector, the kind of employment that it has created for the Ghanaian people?
I think, first of all, you have to look at overall the education sector jobs that have been created. When we came into government, one of the things that had happened to a number of graduates from universities was the fact that there was a freeze on employment and they were not being recruited. And so you have to begin to look at the fact that those who did not go to colleges of education, the old teacher training college, were not even touched at all. I remember the first recruitment when the minister gave opportunity for GS to start recruitment, the number of people, sometimes people who have been home for 5 years and 4 years got the opportunity. And then the introduction of double track itself led to recruitment of over 10,000 new graduates, of course, authorized by the president. Because with increased enrollment, what it meant was that we have more students, and therefore there was a need for more teachers. And also the fact that the double track was enabling us to also reduce class sizes also meant that you needed more teachers. So if a class has 70 students and you are bringing that to 50, it called for the hiring of or recruitment of more teachers. So that happened under the double track directly. And then the growth in numbers, of course, also led to increase in enrollment. So if you look at direct jobs, you're going to look at the 93,000. And as the minister announced, I think today, that about 6,000 graduates are also going to be hired. So bottom line is this: within the next week.
That is going to happen next week. So within a short period of time, under 4 years, we have 93,000 direct employment. Then you have to begin to look at the massive construction that is taking place. And the numbers that they are crunching now, I talked to the division in charge of that, and they are crunching the numbers which will make public very soon. In terms of the number of people who have been hired through the massive infrastructure development that is going on in our senior high schools, and not just senior high schools. We have KGs under construction, a number of basic primary, junior high schools, for example, are being rehabilitated, or new ones are under construction. So when they crunch all that numbers and we make it public, it's also going to talk about the other jobs that have been created as a result of the massive infrastructure development that is taking place. And then you go to Get Fund and the free senior high school and the buffer stock operation with a huge number of students enrolled in our schools who have to be fed. According to buffer stock,
the first year they created 1,300 direct jobs in terms of suppliers.
Yes.
And then 2018, they added 900 more, and they are crunching the numbers for 2019. And then you have other food processing jobs that were created, about 1,000 of them for Gary, Tom Brown, and all the other things that come with it. So if you really look at it, what is going on is that short-term, direct, indirect jobs to really bolster the economy, because you see, when people work and get paid, the money goes back into the economy. And therefore, it has a way of really ensuring that you can really improve your economic situation. But that's, as I just said, that's an icing on the cake.
Yes.
But as you look at what quality education, free senior high school is going to do to the economy, and you look at the relationship between education and economic growth, especially through skills development and manpower development, they become even more exciting.
Right, right. I would want to throw more light on the kind of recruitment that we've been able to do. I may have to put it this way, not recruitment necessarily, but the kind of jobs that we've been able to create, especially in the chain of construction that we have been doing over the years. Now, since 2017, of course, you all know that if the Ministry of Education or the GET Fund will want to build, say, 3-unit classroom block, we may need a project manager, you may need a quantity surveyor, you may need a mechanical engineer, you may need a civil engineer, you may need carpenters, you may need foremen and what have you.
Masons.
Now, absolutely, masons and what have you. Now, if you check the numbers, I would have wished if my producer would be able to put them on the screen so that we'll be able to show to the Ghanaian public. Now, the total number of people that we have employed per structure, that is from 2017 to date, the number of people that we have been able to employ, that is about 40,487. That is not what I want to show, producer. You may have to take it up. I just want to show the table. About 40,487 jobs that we have created as far as construction of 3-unit classroom block is concerned, 2-unit classroom block, 6-unit classroom block, 8 to 9-unit classroom blocks, 12-unit classroom blocks, 18-unit classroom blocks, and 24-unit classroom blocks. It is important to reach it because we are showing on the screen. There are some places that you see that the boxes or the spaces are empty. It is because in some instances, especially if you are building 3-unit classroom block, you may not need a project manager. One of the staff may have to volunteer. One of the staff will have to be appointed as a project manager. So where a project manager is fully recruited or employed is for the 24-unit classroom block, because we feel or we know that that is a big, big story building. But apart from that, if you want to break it down, 2017 employed personnel, we employed about 1,167. 2017, we employed 1,167. This is for the chain of the construction works that we have been doing in the education sector. Apart from that, in 2018, we also employed over 3,605. 3,605. Now, in 2019, that was where we had the chunk of the job creation from 2017, 2020 located. And that is about 31,967. 31,967. Now, in 2020 till date, we have also recruited, or we have created jobs to the tune of about 3,748. I may have to repeat the numbers. Since 2017 till date, we have created 40,487 direct jobs in the education ministry, in the construction, by way of construction, by way of the number of contracts that we've been giving out. And I've already given the breakdowns, the number of people that we need in every kind of project that we put up, being in the 3-unit classroom block and the 4-unit classroom block and what have you. So, Minister, we want to know, in respect to TVET, I know that you're not in charge of TVET, but of course, as a broader ministry, the kind of things that we've been doing as far as TVET is concerned, you may have to educate us for us to know what are the jobs that we've created in respect to TVET as far as your administration, that is Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh's administration, and with your kind leadership is concerned.
Yeah, I think the critical thing is that even when you talk about the 40,000, that's why I said they are looking at the numbers. Because the 40,000 is your direct. Other indirect jobs that have been created as a result of the cement that you are buying and the cement factory, increased production that has to come there, and how many employees that they have to bring on board. All those things are things that we need a labor analyst to help us so that you can really put a handle on the total employment, direct and indirect, that has been created. But suffice it to say that there have been great strides made. But as we said at the beginning, this is an icing on the cake because it's going to help us create a robust education system. But what that education system does is even more important. So if you look at what TVET is doing in terms of the opportunities that they present to apprentices, where they certify master trainers who intend to train more apprentices in their various shops. Those are numbers that TVET, I'm sure, will be making public very soon. But you can really see that when you look at that and the number of people that they are, jobs that they are creating, the ones that they are able to supply sewing machines to, so that they can really create their own jobs. So those entrepreneurial kind of focus is something that also add more in terms of the jobs that the education system is creating, whether as inputs in the education system or as output. And I think when you look at the medium term to long term, then you are going to look at the output. You're going to look at those who've been skilled to perform certain functions, and how those skills that they are getting is then going to be the engine for economic transformation in this country. So the education sector and jobs must exist together. And if you create an education system, especially what the president is doing at the TVET, then you're having a better opportunity to really create the jobs that are desirable and jobs that will transform the fortunes of this country.
You have been at the Education Ministry for some time, since 2017. And in fact, it was one of the interesting positions that has been given, especially because of where you came from and your background. Now, with the implementation of the free senior high school education, some people advocate that it was not necessary for us to have implemented a double track. And we want to understand what really brought about the idea of the double track.
You see, the point of the matter is, and that is, if you really don't understand the nitty-gritty of how things emerge and ideas come and policies are implemented, you may not truly appreciate certain policies. You know, let me go back a bit and talk to our audience about what the Brookings Institution study that they did about a year ago, where they said that in developing countries, if we're in fact going to catch up with the developed nations in terms of education access, in terms of quality, and in terms of relevance, it's going to take us about 126 years to do that. And they were simply saying, you don't have the buildings. So how are you going to get all your citizens to become educated at the senior high school level, at the university level? How do you catch up with developed nations when, because of economic circumstances, you don't have the facilities? And the developed nations do. So they can just open the floodgates of education to all their citizens, and you won't. But the good news is that they said in order for countries to catch up and be able to educate the vast majority of their citizens, they should be looking for leapfrogging strategies. And in fact, subsequent to our implementation of the double track, they have also done another study emphasizing that countries that want to leapfrog access should be looking at Ghana in terms of secondary education. Remember recently Kenyans wrote to the Minister for Education that they needed Ghana to show them how to do double track. It's not for nothing. All that you are doing is this. You only have space for, let's say, if we had not done double track, we could have only have space for about 800,000 students in our senior high school. You create a system that does not shortchange the student in terms of contact hours. You improve the contact hours. That is the period of time teachers are able to work with their students from 1,080 hours to 1,134. You reduce the number of days in the school year a bit, but you compensate and actually overcompensate for it by allowing teachers to interact with their students over a longer block of hours in a school year. And consequently, you're able to do two things. You increase enrollment in the desirable schools across the country, schools that everybody wants to go to. You go to pre-sec and you're able to increase enrollment by about 50%. In some schools, you can increase enrollment by 70%. So instead of, let's say, pre-sec taking 1,000 students, they're able to take 1,700. Those 700 students are students who didn't have had the opportunity to go to pre-sec, and they are there. So once you do that, what you have done for us as a country is that you have opened the floodgates of education to a large number of students, and you have also given them opportunity to go to schools where the quality of learning and teaching is at the highest level possible. So when the Brookings institution talk about leapfrogging inequality, they were talking about how do you use the resources that you have, and given your financial constraints, you cannot immediately enhance or improve, and use that to attain better outcomes. So when you understand education and understand leapfrogging strategies, you're able to look at double track and say, wow, instead of 800,000, I have close to 1.2 million in school. 400,000 more are going to school. What does that mean in terms of skill development in the country? And that is the most critical thing. If you look at this in terms of us and our children, and the fact that double track or no double track, probably they could have gone to a disorder, then you begin to look at this from an individualistic point of view. But the moment you look at us as a country and begin to understand that countries that have developed are the ones that have a very high rate of gross tertiary enrollment ratio, very high gross tertiary enrollment ratio. How do you get to tertiary enrollment ratio, a higher one, when secondary doesn't grant access to many people to even experience it? So the bottom line is this. What you need to ask yourself is this. In the 21st century, what does it take for a country to develop? And the researchers out there shows clearly that you really have to make sure that the vast majority of your people have access to education, and beyond secondary, even into tertiary. So that's why if you look at our manifesto, we are now opening the floodgates of access to tertiary through the non-guarantor loan system, where students will be able to use their national ID and borrow money to go to school, so that money does not become the reason why they couldn't access tertiary education. Yes, to the individual it's beneficial, but to the nation it's even more beneficial. So you cannot talk about transforming the fortunes of a nation when you are not looking at education as a lever for socioeconomic transformation, education as something that is good for the individual, but even of a greater good for the society as a whole. So that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo education transformation agenda is simple. I'm going to make sure finance and access short-term in terms of facility is not a reason why I refuse education to a young man or a woman growing up in any part of the country. But beyond that, I'm also going to, the president said, he's also going to ensure that he embark on a massive infrastructure development so that he can get students to go to school as a group, as one cohort, and not 2 or 3 cohorts. And that is why the 1.5 billion infrastructure development agenda is on course. And you see, the president promised that within 5 to 7 years. That was 3 years ago. So now you are looking at between 2 years ago. So between 3 to 5 years, that promise is going to come into fruition because the infrastructure is being developed. So the bottom line is this. If you can improve the outcomes of the country in terms of education, close to 400,000 students, and you can at the same time improve the quality because there's more contact hours, and at the same time provide intervention grant to schools so that teachers will be paid extra money to do the extra work that comes with bringing a lot of students into the secondary education space. You have done something good.
But the NDC is saying that in the unlikely event that they win power, they are going to cancel the double track, and they are not going to wait for that 3 to 5 years that we are talking about.
My brother, when I hear NDC talking a review of Free Senior High School, and especially when they talk about eliminating double track, it scares me. It doesn't scare me as a politician, but it scares me as an educationist, as an expert in education, that they simply don't understand the engine that drives free senior high school. On the unlikely event that NDC is in power, free senior high school as we know it will collapse. Free senior high school as we know it. The free senior high school as we know it guarantee access to every student. There's no cutoff. If you eliminate double track within 1 year, without following through on the infrastructure development being done by the president, free senior high school collapse. Because what it means is this: instead of 1,700 students going to pre-sec, it's going to be 1,000. Where did the 700 go to? And I hear them say that it's going to take them 1 year to put up all the infrastructure. If you could do it in a year, why did you leave so many buildings uncompleted for us to come and complete? It's not feasible.
They use 4 years.
It's not viable.
29 E-blocks.
Yeah, 29 E-blocks in 4 years. And sometimes we even give credit to just the 4 years. Some of them were started under President Mills. So the bottom line for me is this: when I look at what NDC is saying, in terms of what they are going to do with free senior high school, first of all, sometimes I look at it and say, okay, private participation, they talk about it. Okay. Interestingly, in this country, you don't force students to go to any school that they don't like. So when you talk about why didn't you use as secondary school, I heard the party chairman of NDC talking about Drobonso was giving furniture 4 years ago, the school has not been operationalized. And I said to him, and I want to respond to him, and say that in this country, we don't force students to go to a school that they don't want to go to. Drobonso was placed on the computer selection system.
And no one chose it.
3 years ago. And no one chose it. It's not a joke.
Because of where it is situated.
Where it is.
Where it is situated.
Apeja, same thing happened.
Yes, yes.
And that is the reason why the Minister for Education directed that Drobonso should get dormitory blocks. Apeja should get dormitory blocks. So that students will be attracted to go there. So it's not that simple. But if you don't understand education and don't take the time to really study it and understand it, you're going to make those pronouncements. I'll cancel double track, and then he even take a look at the green, the red. Is the green the red that has brought the poor children of this country to various schools? So you are denigrating them. When I say the green and the red and the yellow, I'll cancel it. My brother, let me tell you a story of Eduaben. Eduaben, a village in Bosomtwe, I'll say a town in Bosomtwe constituency, used to be a vibrant railway town. Migrants from the north, from the south, everywhere lived in Eduaben. The railways disappeared, and the fortunes of Eduaben changed. The migrants who were there had to turn to farming. The indigents had to turn to farming. In a typical year when things are good, 2 or 3 students will go to senior high school. The rest of them will find themselves on the farm. And God helped them. Then free senior high school came. And Eduaben's future cannot be brighter. About a month ago, there was a big community celebration where those who have graduated from senior high schools were celebrated. And can you believe about 50 students have now graduated from senior high school at Eduaben? Something that would have taken 20 years for that town to witness. I'm told when the students started coming from their various senior high schools, this one will bring their trunk to the center of the town, people will jubilate. At the time when they were doing the celebration, people were shedding tears. Tears of joy for the children, but tears for themselves that they wish Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was their president at the time that they graduated from middle school and junior high schools. Free senior high schools transforming this nation because the cutoff point was removed and everyone has an opportunity now. And when you talk about, I don't like double track and I'm going to eliminate it as if it is something bad, you are making fun of people from Eduaben who, if it had not been for the double track, couldn't have gotten access to senior high school. So my brother, the bottom line is this. I can cut them a slack that they don't understand. But if they truly understand, then I don't know why they want to review something, cancel something that happens to be the engine of the double track in the short term. When Nana Danko Akufo-Addo say, I'm eliminating something, he's building more facilities. There's a clear demonstration. So why don't Ghanaians give him a chance to really put us on a progressive track of one by one elimination to make sure that all the facilities are there so that we don't turn any student away from Prempeh College. But rather by the time that all the facilities are done, within 2 to 3 years going on, all the students that want to be in Prempeh College will get access, and all the students who want to be at Chimota will get access. And it won't be you come to Prempeh College and say, no, we have no access, no enrollment space for you. But by the way, there's some private school in your village. Would you want to go back there and go to school there? Is that what you want to tell Ghanaians? The parents that I've met on the streets of Kumasi and Bosomtwe and Accra rather have their children go to Achimota, rather have their children go to Presec, and not to some private school that they don't know. And by the way, in Ghana, if they know something about our secondary education system, they will understand that you can't force a student to go to a school that they haven't chosen. How many parents want their children to go to the private school that they attended at primary and junior high school level? So if once you block double track, cut down enrollment by about 50 to 70% to all the top schools in this country, about 400 of them, then what you are telling these parents is that I've reduced enrollment in the 400 schools and you have to find yourself a private school to go to. So if that parent doesn't like that private school, what it means is that their children cannot have access to senior high school. And I don't even know how many private schools have that capacity. That is why I'm concerned. And I'm speaking here as an educationist. That on the unlikely event that they implement the policies that they are talking about, free senior high school collapse in front of us. And I don't think we can go backwards. We rather should go forward with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's vision and transform the fortunes of the poor and the deprived and get every one of us to be on the same level playing field so that we create a society, an equitable society where the poor will not envy the rich.
We'll be going for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I will ask you about the feasibility of the NDC's promise that they are going to implement the free SHS to include private schools. There has been an argument that has been peddled around by the NDC. Even when in 2016 they said that our economy was not that strong enough to be able to pay for free SHS. 4 years down the line, they say they are now going to implement the free SHS and include private schools. And I'm sure it includes GIS and all the other schools. Stay tuned.
If we can pay.
You are most welcome. This is Majority Caucus. We come your way every Thursday at 6 p.m. to 7 o'clock. We have in the studios Dr. Yaw Osei-Aduchum, who is the Deputy Minister for Education. Doc, before we left, I indicated to you that I will ask you about the NDC's promise of the free SHS and its implementation, and their promise that they are now going to add private schools. But before I come there, it is important for me to reiterate the points that you have already made around this table about the number of teachers that we have been able to recruit since 2017. Now, if you check the figures, in 2017 to 2019, we have recruited about 66,000 teaching and non-teaching staff. And this includes the number of teachers that they failed to recruit from 2012-2016 because of the mess that they created as far as the economy was concerned. So what it means is that if not the intervention of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we wouldn't have been able to recruit all these teachers. Now from 2018, we have also recruited about 8,872, and that was because of the implementation of the double track, where because of the implementation we needed more teachers for them to be able to get into our classroom, because at that time you were now running a stream whereby some teachers may have to rest at a point and some others will have to also go when the others are also resting. And so in total, if the advertisement that we are going to start from Monday going, we are now going to have about 93,000 teachers that have been recruited since 2017 up to date.
Yes.
And it is important for me to state this. If not His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, these teachers probably might be staying home because there was an IMF intervention which clearly stated that we could not recruit teachers. Again, the number of 3 unit classroom blocks that we've built or we've constructed since 2017 is 58. 58 3-unit classroom block. Now, 6-unit classroom blocks, we have also constructed about 169. 8 to 9-unit classroom blocks, we have also constructed 2. 12-unit classroom blocks, we have constructed 186. 18-unit classroom blocks, we have also constructed 10. 24-unit classroom blocks, we have constructed 18. Single-story dormitory block, we have also constructed 302. 2-story dormitory block, we have constructed 56. 3-story dormitory block, we have also constructed 16. Toilet blocks, we have also constructed 210. Rehabilitation works, we've done 63. And other structures, we have also done 163. Now, if you add all these figures, it totals 1,253. And this is for only senior high schools. The kindergarten, where we have also constructed about over 100 kindergarten blocks. And these were things that we put in the manifesto, that we are going to expand access as far as the kindergartens are concerned. And His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Matopoku Pempe-led administration has been able to construct over 100 kindergartens across the country. And so it is these figures that is giving us the number of jobs that we have created in the education sector, amounting to over 40,487 jobs that we've created in the education sector. Construction. Really? It is also important for us to also talk about in the national buffer stock, and I initially heard you speak to that. Since 2017, or let me say to be specific, from 2017 September, about 1,300 suppliers got contracts, and this is by way of job creation to the people of Ghana. It is also important for us to also note that the same 2017, the public boarding secondary schools, we also had about 900 suppliers who also won contracts, and these are direct jobs that the Ministry of Education have also created. Now, the food processing chain, and people who were manufacturing, if you like, gari and edible palm oil and Tom Brown and what have you. We also have over 1,000 jobs, the estimations over 1,000 jobs that have been created in this particular sector. And that sector is led by Mr. Adnan, who is also doing a very good job in the national buffer stock under the Office of the President. But Minister, Deputy Minister, let me state this. The NDC, after their failure to admit in 2016 that free SHS was possible, some of its ministers at the time even said that it was going to be possible after 20 years. And now His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in 2017 March, in his first State of the Nation address, showed commitment that the free SHS was going to be done, whether the economy was ill, whether the economy was not on its feet or not, because the idea that the natural resources of Ghana before, or even if you like after independence, has always been better than that of Taiwan, has been better than China and all that. The developmental stories of these countries after 2020 is far better than that of Ghana. So His Excellency the President said that I am going to invest in human development. I'm going to ensure that we have free senior high school education so that the next 20 years, the next 30 years, the country is going to reap the benefits of this investment, huge investments that we are making. And the NDC says that it is consumption, instead of us to invest in capital expenditure. Now, the point is that after the implementation, they have now made a U-turn, saying that they are now going to implement the free SHS to include private schools. How feasible is this promise to the people of Ghana?
As I said at the beginning, looking at this from the perspective of education policy making and how you implement such a major reform, and if you are not careful and you leave out some critical element, you are going to collapse it. And when I say that you make a mistake, the mistake is this. When we talk about the double track, we clearly articulated how it was going to work. The president was very clear, told Ghanaians what he was going to do, and said this is what measures I'm going to put in place. And true to his word, he looked for the funding, get fund securitization, $1.5 billion. My brother, it wasn't easy. It wouldn't have been easy had it not been the fact that you had a president who made a promise and decided to redeem the promise during his first term in his presidency. The kind of intervention that have done, the flagship projects that have been implemented in the first term, it's unprecedented. On top of funding around $100 billion to clean up the banking challenges and the arrears that were outstanding, he also found money, close to $15 billion plus for projects within the flagship sector of things. When he said that I made a promise and I'm going to fulfill the promise, something that is unprecedented. So bottom line is this: when you talk about the fact that yes, you've done free senior high school and I'm coming in, and when I come, I'm going to review in quotes, because, and that's what scares me. And then you were specific enough to say that my review will be the elimination of the double track. And then you go on to say that I will bring in the private sector to participate in that. My brother, at the primary school level, junior high school level, private sector has done a fantastic job. We really, really applaud them for their sense of entrepreneurship that brings them into that space, and they do a fantastic job. But the same cannot be said at the senior high school level. Yes, we have top tier schools that are doing so, and those places, there's no space. Even if they wanted to enroll, we cannot afford to pay on behalf of the students who want to go there. So I don't know the private sector senior high schools that they were talking about. Are they the schools that when students didn't have any choice, the school they used to go when the cutoff was there, when students were cut off and didn't have any chance, they would go to some private school in their community and they would pay money to go there? Are they the schools that then this is talking about? And how many parents are saying that when my child finishes primary school, junior high school at the private school, I want him to stay at that private school and go to senior high school? What I know is this: in Ghana, this is what takes place. Parents spend everything that they can spend for their children to go to private school at the primary and junior high so that they can get into the top performing public schools in the, that is what happens. Parents don't send, majority of the parents don't send their children to private schools in their towns and villages so that they will stay there for high school. No, they send them there to do on the BEC so that they can go to St. Augustine's, they can go to Edisadam,
St. Hubert's Seminary,
Hubert's Seminary, and Yache Pramsu, Kumasi High, and then all the schools out there. So if you are a government and you are saying that I'm going to go against the wishes of parents and that I'm not going to allow you to go to your school of choice, I'm going to cut enrollment in the schools that you so desire to go to. I'm going to reduce enrollment at Prempeh College before the buildings are done. And then I'll force you or compel you to go to a private school that you did not even select. That is why I say that I'm concerned that this policy, when implemented to the letter on the unlikely event that they get the opportunity, free senior high school as we know it, the free senior high school that have given opportunity to a young man from Tra to come to Achimota will no longer exist. The free senior high school that gave opportunity for students at Abono in my constituency to go to Augustine will no longer survive. So what kind of free senior high school are we talking about when we are shutting the door in the face of the poor? And we are telling them that we are not increasing enrollment in the top performing schools, and therefore you no longer can go there. So the only student from Tra who went to Achimota, that will be the only student who can go to Achimota, because Achimota is going to cut enrollment. So maybe they haven't thought through it. So I'll give them benefits of the doubt. I don't think President Mahama wakes up every day and said, I'm desired to collapse free senior high school.
But how do you
the policy?
How do you marry this argument with the constitutional provision of Article 25 as to whether you can use state resources to be able to fund private businesses?
There are two arguments that goes with that. In the first place, even if you could under the Constitution, is it a better alternative in terms of quality outcomes? Because we're not talking about GISO.
Yes.
I used to operate a private school in my village. Why did I do it? I did it because majority of the children could not get access to public senior high schools. So I created a school for them. Of course, that school was not performing like the public schools. I gave it to the government because I didn't set up the school to make money. I could afford to do that. So it's now a public school. But if that school was in existence, how many parents, given the chance to go to Prempeh, would rather select Lakeview Senior High School? So the bottom line is this: beyond the constitutionality argument, which I believe, if it was viable, a different conversation could be had. But we are talking about parents are saying, I'd rather send my children to this school. And you as a government is going to say, I'd rather cut enrollment to that school so that you no longer have access. And by the way, I'll send you to a private school that you didn't choose. So the bottom line is, it's a parent who is listening to me now saying, I'd rather have my child go to Achimota than to SYZ private school that I don't know their
time to create some amount of inequality in the system, because private schools determine fees that are charged, and each private school can say or can give a different amount of fees that will have to be charged. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time. We may have to go.
I think even if, because junior high, primary school, great. Right. But the private school that they are talking about invariably are not your high-performing private school.
Right. We have in the studio Dr. Yawase Edichum. He has been our guest this evening. Next week, we will come your way. But before I go, let me make this analysis to you. The economic growth that we had in this country in 2016, before the Ghanaian people voted for His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was hovering around 3.6, 3.7. We left an economic growth of about 7.8, 8.9 thereabout in 2008 for them. The question is, how come they reduced it? On that basis, they told the people of Ghana that we do not have a resilient economy, and for that matter, we cannot implement free senior high school education. Fast forward, or 4 years down the lane, they are now saying that the economy, which could not have ensure that we implemented the free senior high school education, can now implement the free senior high school education for them. And on top of it, they are now going to include private schools. So the question I ask is now, or are we now having an economy that is resilient and robust enough to be able to implement the free senior high school education? Your answer is as good as mine. Next week will come your way. My name is Vincent Kowasifo Jr. and I'm the parliamentary candidate for the good people of Old Tafo. Today, it's one of the happiest days in the second vice chairperson of the Old Tafo constituency, Desmond Ajiman. Wherever you are, I say good evening to you. I'll see you next week. May God bless you all.